Local Contract Review Board is now meeting in regular session. Please join me for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May I have the roll call, please?
Commissioner Neppker.
Here.
Commissioner Clement.
Here.
Commissioner Lee.
Here.
Commissioner Sullivan.
Here.
Commissioner Thompson.
Here.
Okay, we have an amended agenda, which we added an appointment of a DOPTA member.
The Board of Property Tax Appeals.
Yep. And that's in our amended agenda as presented. Look for a motion to approve the amended agenda.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Tonight, we're going to have a presentation, our 2016-17 audited financials. Welcome. Good evening.
I have with me Debbie Blasquez, Cruz Purdue and Blasquez. And she is going to be presenting for us tonight the 2016-17 audited financials for the countywide financials as well as the Forky building. So I'm going to turn it over to her, and if you have any questions, go ahead and stop us at any point.
I wanted to just kind of go over the packet for the county at first. More questions on the component. You received two letters with the reports. One is what we call the letter to those charged with governance. That one just tells you what our responsibilities were as the auditor and what your responsibilities as the auditee were. And that was the thicker letter that had a copy of the management representation letter and things to it. The second letter is what we call our communication, excuse me, on internal control matters. And there were just a few comments this year. There was a comment with regards to the loan covenant. I believe that was with the DEQ loan. I do know that that's been resolved and that won't be on the letter next year. There was also some comments that had to do with the fair. As far as internal controls over contracts and making sure that public contracting rules are abided by. And then also some internal controls with regards to just record keeping, making sure receipts are being kept, making sure that you're following board policies, such as using local banks, making sure the deposits into the ATM are getting recorded and timely made. And then the last one had to do with expenditures with regards to the state highway funds, and I do know, having talked to Monica Sense, that they have a committee they put together to work on making sure that those funds are being spent and projects are being done. Okay. Do you have any specific questions on the report? Your report's super thick.
I have a whole lot of them, so I don't know how much
Okay.
time we want to spend tonight on this, but you know that this is the stuff I've been doing for ages and ages, and I just love it. But I don't know if it's everybody else's cup of tea. So it's a specialized affection, I believe. So how do I balance my interest in getting information with using everybody else's time well? Because I want to be respectful of everybody else's time and interest level.
Well, I really appreciate that, Commissioner. I think that for the purpose here, I think it's really important that we state the specifics. And if you have
Yeah.
a lot of other stuff,
No, it's all specifics.
okay. So, and you can always circle back around to
And
Monica.
I'm always available via phone call or email as well.
So maybe the better way to handle it is to arrange to have a separate appointment, because truly, I spent days going over this because I'm really interested in the detail. For me, people work hard to make the money that comes in revenue. People work hard to control expenditures and savings and all of that sort of thing. I'm interested in, are we investing long-term to achieve long-term goals? And so that's my skill set, that's my interest, but I want to use everyone's time well. So perhaps we'll see about that and having a separate
We could do a conference
conversation.
call, yeah. I'm in Albany, so we could certainly do a conference call. I would be,
And I'm often over there, so maybe I'll come and be in your office and we can conference. Should we conference you, and is that the best way to do it? Cool.
yeah. And if you want to maybe send me the specific things you're looking at so that I
Oh.
can go through by the page.
Oh,
Okay.
I'm telling you.
If you can just email those to me, the pages and the comments, then at least I know what you're
I
looking
tell
for,
you
and I
what,
can go through the work papers.
I'm going to hand you this book tonight, because that's
Okay.
the easier way to do it, and then I'll make an
Perfect.
appointment with you, and we'll
Yeah, I'd be happy to
we'll
do
talk
that.
about all of it.
Yeah. Everybody, I mean, the numbers, if you're looking for just the gist, a general summary, I would probably spend some time reading the management discussion and analysis, which is in the very front part of the financial section. That at least will give you broad brush what the numbers look like, why the numbers are the way they are, and give you some general information. And maybe read the notes to the financial statements if
Yeah.
you really want to get into that. But otherwise, Monica and her staff does an amazing job for us and makes it really.
I really appreciate that, and thank you, Commissioner Thompson. And when I looked over it, the things that I look for are deficiencies and findings. And there really wasn't any deficiencies or findings,
Just the items in the internal control letter.
right, on the
Yeah.
internal control. And so I'm pleased, that's that's what I look for. And
Yeah.
so, thank you, Commissioner, for digging into that further, and we look forward to any kind of report that comes out of your
Okay,
questions.
good. Well, one of the things I'm very interested in is PERS. And, well,
Yes, it's a moving target every year.
it's a moving target, it's a growing target.
Yes, it
it's-
is.
It's like climate change,
We experienced that with almost all of our audit clients this year. Last year, the very first year that they instituted the GASB 68, most people saw a deferred asset on their statement of net activities. This year, or last year, we saw a swing back the other way, and this year, we saw an even bigger liability being recorded in most entities. So it's something that's growing for everybody, not just for the county.
It's not a happy trend. It's a
It's not.
geometric trend rather than an arithmetic trend.
Yes.
So if we can confer and get some, I want to say, grounding on where we're headed and what's the best, because we've done a great job so far, how do we continue that in the face of this growing and issue?
Yes, and that may not be something I can answer for you, just because PERS, the calculation comes from them every year. So.
I got it.
And we do have steps in place currently. We have a PERS reserve fund, and that is something that we are in constant communication with as to at what point in time they recently made changes to their side accounts that you can pay into to help offset the PERS rates. And so that's something that we're in communication with about at what point in time do we want to make that contribution into our side account to help keep those rates lower. And so we, for the past 3 years, have been setting aside $300,000. So that fund is at $1 million. So then that way we can make a deposit into our side account and help reduce those rates. And reduce our unfunded liability amount.
Yeah, which is an excellent strategy. I think it would be good for the board to have a broad grounding in that, maybe a separate report where we parse that out and take a look at it. I think that would be useful as community leaders and responsible for governing the county operations, to look at that huge thing that's out there.
I'd be interested in that.
Yeah, good.
Great. Any other questions or comments about the audit? Monica, did you have any?
No, I just appreciated throughout the county all the support that the different management and staff provided, as well as the firm of Purdue and Blaska. They are great to work with. We appreciate their thoroughness.
Great.
Good experience.
Any other questions or comments? Well, then I thank you for the presentation. Yeah, have a.
Thank you
and
very much.
You'll be hearing from Commissioner Thompson.
That's fine.
Are these available online too?
They will be, yes. Yeah, we
Okay.
post all prior year audits. Actually, I think they actually are already up there.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, this is an opportunity for anyone to give a 3-minute presentation about any item on the agenda, except public hearings or any topic of county concern that is not on the agenda. People wishing to speak during business from the public must fill out and sign in a public comment sign-in card. I've got just I've got a couple, let me explain what's going on here tonight. I've got one comment from a citizen, and then I've been requested by one of our special districts to have a little extra time, and I'm going to alter the rules a bit to allow the Skippon Water Control District to present their case or their comments. And I'm also going to allow, since it is a special district, I'm going to allow the board to ask questions for the Skippon, if the board has any questions for Skippon Water Control District, because this is a kind of a special government. So I just wanted to clarify that up front. And then our first guest tonight will be Susan Gladwin. Good evening, Susan. Come on up and state your name and address for the record.
Susanna.
Huh?
Susanna.
Oh.
Susanna Gladwin, 82316, Highway 103, Seaside, Oregon, 97138. I was just wondering about the status of the Lynn County lawsuit. I was never sure at times if the board can answer questions directly.
Not generally on business from the public. The only reason I'm allowing that tonight because this is a special government district.
Right. Okay.
But you're welcome to, send your questions to me or any of the commissioners. Commissioner Sullivan's on the board.
Okay.
So I'll just allow I'll start your 3 minutes right now. Okay?
Oh, no, it was just about questioning about the Lynn County lawsuit.
Oh, is that specifically, I would suggest that you just submit that
I'm
request.
sorry, yes.
Yeah.
I will comment on the short-term rental thing, but that's going to happen in its own.
That will be part of the
Please.
public comment during, so
Yes.
you'll come up during the public hearing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. Okay, and then our next guest is the Skippon Water Control District, and where I've amended the rules to allow for a conversation and a little more time. Tessa, Bruce, welcome.
Thank you, Chairman Lee, Commissioners, county staff. Appreciate this opportunity. I'm the chairperson for the Skippon Water Control District. I was elected first in '93 and have served since then continuously. With me is Mr. Francis.
I'm Vice Chair.
Vice Chair, and has probably served about 20 years, 4 or 5 terms at this point. About 47 years of combined experience working with the Skippon Water Control District. We're here tonight because we want to present some public testimony in response to a 30-page document that was mailed to all of you, and a more recent letter that was mailed to all of our constituents in the Skippon Water Control District. Well, we're living in an era of alternate facts, I guess we'd have to say, and it is our responsibility to respond to the concerns of our constituents and to basically what we consider misinformation that's contained in the 30-page document and the 6-page letter that was mailed to our constituents. We've had a long and successful relationship with the county. We work with the county Public Works, Parks, and you as individual commissioners on multiple subjects. Our MOU outstanding with the county says that we will indeed let you know about all our major plans or changes. In fact, we have. In 2016, we had a big change for the district. We adopted a new engineering plan. This was after 2 different federal government studies about the river and the watersheds and the working of the A Street Dam. And then we had another complete independent study done by an international firm, Tetra Tech, out of Portland. And then we adopted our engineering plan. That plan contains plans for removal of the A Street Dam and replacing it with a bridge. We worked for a couple of years with the city of Warrenton in that regard. We still have plans for removing the middle structure. What we do not have plans for is removing or altering the Cullowhee Lake Dam. The letter that went to our constituents, and perhaps some of you, suggests that the district has some conspiratorial and illegal plans to drain Cullowhee Lake in favor of fish passage. These spurious claims are alarming some folks, and when I heard from Representative Boone the other day, and I was also informed of the 30-page document by one of the commissioners, thank you, we felt maybe this would just die of its own accord, and not to give it much oxygen. However, just last night, the person who wrote these documents was testifying before the city of Warrenton about our district. We have a very transparent plan. All of our minutes and records are kept at the county courthouse. We have a fairly lengthy document stack that includes the hearings and the adopted engineering plan that we took to the public in 2016. What followed was our inability to work successfully with the city, but before that time we had obtained legal permits from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the State Department of State Lands, and other agencies, including the county that we've worked with closely, county planners, to remove those dams. That's not why we're here, but this seems to be the source of contention for some individuals, and we want to reassure the county we will indeed stick to our MOU. We will inform you of any plans to change anything else, and we want to be and continue to be transparent and uphold our own ORSs as we work together successfully. That's pretty much my statement, and happy to respond to any questions or comments.
Chris, do you have anything to add?
I have a very short statement, and I agree exactly with what Tessa has said. One thing I would like to say is the allegations that the removal of the dams is for the fish passage is completely wrong. What happens is when an engineering report says that the dam, which is now 56 years in age and is structurally compromised, needs to be removed, needs to be decommissioned, the byproduct of that investigation will indeed allow for fish passage and increased water quality. So it is a byproduct of what the original intent was, which is to maintain the levels agreement with the county for the recreational use of Cullowhee Lake. So it's just a byproduct, and the fact that this individual has put out this incorrect information. I also am president of the Cullowhee Lake Homelands Association, and I've had to placate to the 84 members plus the 147 that are in that area by my email and contacts, and my phone has been running off the hook. So you understand that this has become quite an issue, and that's why we're here tonight, to at least alleviate the fears that we're doing something illegal and completely against agreement with county codes.
Great, well, I really appreciate that.
I-
I have a couple questions, and I'll just let the, was there any engineering study done on the Cullowhee Lake? Is that's it's a kind of a, not really a dam at Cullowhee Lake, is it? It's some sort of,
It's not, Chairman, it's not big enough to be a dam. It's big enough to be a water control structure. It has operating controls on it. We've spent tens of thousands of dollars to rebuild it, and we have a $950,000 plan for the fish ladder. I doubt we'll ever get the money for that, but we will operate the dam. We will operate it successfully. We want to work, as we have, with the county parks to maintain a wonderful place and respect the contributions and investment the county has put in there, the State Marine Board has put in there. We love the lake. We want to see the lake succeed. The river, we've studied it again with the 2 federal studies and an international engineering firm study. Removal of the A Street Dam will not in fact cause any more flooding, in fact may reduce flooding. Dams cause flooding upstream, they control flooding downstream. The Department of Agriculture designed it in 1957. They made some grievous errors, which they've admitted. It's undersized, it's obsolete. The State Dam Safety Inspector, that's really his title, said in 2013 that it is unsafe, is a high hazard, and could fail. It won't cause problems unless it clogs up, and then it could flood the city. We don't want to take up too much of your time with our parochial matters, but happy to answer any questions.
so, go ahead.
Well, because I keep reading about this, and it's as if there are two, it's Rashomon, right? There are two different realities going on. Is there any way to move forward to reconcile those realities?
We have endeavored to do so, and finally we were able to have a work session with the commissioners from the city of Warrenton. I think it was a successful meeting. We don't have a follow-up meeting. The city plans to do a flood study on their own. We stick by our engineering plans and our work with Crest and our 2 years of MOU work with the city.
Well, someone, I mean, I read all this. Remember, I raised that issue, what do we do with this? Well, it was for information for us. Is there a way we can support a good process? Do we just hear what you've got to say, give you a public venue? Is there anything else we could or should easily do that would somehow,
I think probably what we need to do is alleviate your fears by saying
Yeah.
that we are law-abiding individuals who are not going on a rampage, tearing the recreational opportunities of the lake, Callaway Lake, put them in jeopardy. That is not what is going on. These
Thank you.
lies are definitely false.
thank you. It's,
Thanks for the question, Commissioner Thompson. And we've worked very closely with the county, especially county planners, especially public works, especially county parks, and value that association. They've known all along. We still have a longstanding MOU. As I said, we value the work we do together. And the county and the district came together in 1960, and when the district was first formed. And that's when the county also made a very significant investment in Cullowhee Lake. We value that.
Great.
Hopefully, Mr. Francis, because you're on the homeowners board and because of the position that you hold in this agency, you are well placed to answer people's concerns. I would imagine. You would
Thank you.
listen.
I've done my best to alleviate the fears because there've been a lot of them.
Yeah.
This has caused hysteria amongst homeowners because they felt that they were losing value of their property by losing
Sure.
the lake.
Would it be helpful to get something in the Daily A, or?
We've heard from the reporters, and they seem to know about this, and they followed it pretty carefully.
So we'll let the reporters do their thing.
Yeah. He's right back there in the back of the room.
Right? But we're just reporting the facts to you.
We really appreciate it.
It's
Is
a
there any other-
public hearing we had. It was a very public document. The document, our engineering plan, is adopted. It sits in the county courthouse, is available for public review.
Great. Any other questions? I really appreciate you coming and informing us on this important matter, and have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
Chairman,
very
for
much.
giving us this opportunity. Thank
Gotcha.
you.
Thank you.
community volunteers really are the beauty and strength of an area.
Yes, we net about $11,500 to run the district, and we spend $3,000 of that on insurance, and we do all the work ourselves. We have absolutely no staff.
Thank
Our own
you.
budgets and everything else.
Thank you so much for the good work.
Okay, looking for a motion to approve the consent calendar of the amended agenda.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion to second approve the consent calendar. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Tonight, we're going to continue our public hearing concerning the regulating short-term rentals. This is going to be the second reading tonight, page 15, and I'm going to open the public hearing. This is a continuation of the public hearing on ordinance 18-01, regulating short-term rentals. Is there any additional information from staff? Seeing no additional information from staff, is there any public testimony tonight? Welcome, come on up and state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak to the public testimony on hearing of ordinance 18-01, regulating short-term rentals.
Susanna Gladwin, 82316 Highway 103, Seaside, Oregon 97138. I have a farm in Jewel, and there's some issues in here that I didn't realize it being a second hearing, they were still open to the public. So I'm not as organized as I could be, but I have notated on page 18. Well, I might hold that one because I'm not sure. But on page 19, under standards, section 8, to me it was confusing where it said no more than one dwelling unit on a lot or parcel, but then later you define how many people per sleeping room. And I'm not sure if the wording, if there's any problem with the wording. I was confused, and then I reread it, and I haven't had time to sort through to see if that one versus how many people per room, per sleeping unit, if those definitions are clear. And am I being clear to you that I'm wondering if the wording needs to be read more carefully, and I can't address it any better than that
Okay.
right now. And then also, on the page 19, a railing of how exactly would you define 200-pound impact force? Because a 300-pound drunk person crashing around might be problematic. So I was just wondering about how that's worded. And so that when I first mentioned about no more than one dwelling unit, it's R on page 21 that talks about how many people in a rental unit can sleep in a bedroom and that definition. And I just wonder if those both are making sense. The other,
So Suzanne, I'm sorry, what is it about R that doesn't make sense to you?
I'm not sure if it makes sense or not. Just on the section 7C, I think it is, that on page 18, where you talk about a dwelling unit,
Oh.
one dwelling unit per parcel, and then later on, you're talking about a dwelling unit and how many people per bedroom. And I just don't know if there's a lack of clarity, if it should be more clear or not. And can I just mention one other thing?
Yeah, what I'm going to do is, your time's up, but what I'll do is I've circled, and the other commissioners have made notes of your concerns. And when we deliberate on this in a few minutes, any of the commissioners will be welcome to bring up some of these concerns, and we'll look at some clarification for you.
I just had one other little thing.
Yeah, I'll allow that for
Thank
just
you.
one more little thing, yeah.
Thank you. So I'm a ag forestry, 90-acre ag forestry. It was a no logging camp, and there were a variety of houses on it. And so having one per parcel, I don't know if I would fit that definition without going to having an event. I know there's a whole other thing under planning over an event. So that's my concern on my property.
Definitely, if, in the future, if you have any concerns or need clarification, definitely call the county.
Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. Okay, yeah, I've circled those. I'm going to take a look at them. When we move into deliberations, we can talk about some of those concerns if any of the commissioners have any. Is there any other public testimony tonight concerning the short-term rental ordinance? Seeing no more public testimony, I will now close the public hearing, and then the board will deliberate, discuss, and move towards a possible motion. So, my position's pretty clear on this. If you read the paper today, I'm pretty much where I'm satisfied with the ordinance as written. So we'll just have to see how this goes, and I'd be interested to hear if what other commissioners' comments or opinions, or if somebody wants to make a motion.
I have some comments.
Sure.
Well, first of all, I'd like to address what Ms. Gladwin was asking about, because she is in an area where we are redoing that language or those ordinances, right? For forestry, ag.
That's a zoning classification. That's
Uh-huh.
really different than the ordinance.
It's not this.
Well, but we are updating that portion, aren't we?
Farm Forest Code,
Our
yeah.
Okay, so.
I don't know that area that well. I don't know if it's going to impact that area or not. But
Isn't it for all agricultural areas? It's not?
if depending on how it's zoned, there's different agricultural zones. If it's a farm, forest, agricultural zone, then yeah, that it would be affected by the update.
Because she was referring to that there's several buildings, and so I was just wondering if that could be something that has some bearing on this.
Well, they're really separate. Different zoning classifications allow different types of development. This doesn't really deal with that. This deals with wherever you may happen to have a home or a dwelling unit, if you choose to use it as a short-term rental, that's where this ordinance applies. But prior to even getting to that point, it would be the existing county or the county zoning that would dictate what can be built in what type of zoning area. So they're kind of two different things, really. This is just an added layer of regulation that could cover any zoning area that permitted a dwelling that could be used as a short-term rental unit.
So say in this situation, you have several buildings, and does it then say that you can only, even no matter how many buildings or how much land you have in that zone, you can only have one?
Again, you have to look at the zoning separate from this. Let's say you had one parcel of land and you had 5 buildings on it. Under this ordinance, you could only use one of those as a short-term rental. But the zoning might allow 4 or 5 buildings on that piece of property. So again, they're kind of two different things.
So you're saying that no matter how many buildings or houses you have, you can only have one short-term rental?
Yeah, it's 1 per parcel, I believe is what it says. So
So how many parcels might there be on a 90-acre piece of land?
It could be any number. There could be 1, there could be 90, it
Depends.
it depends on the piece of property.
So I think the scenario here, what we're talking about is, that, let's say somebody's got 10 acres of property that was, and it had 4 small cabins. I know a number of these, they were real common along the beach. So you have 1 parcel of land with 4 little cabins on it that people rent out. So that's not gonna, that's a different type of business, isn't it? And there
Would
be,
people be forced to subdivide?
or how does that work?
well, it would depend on how they're running it, but if they're gonna, if they have 4 parcels on a, a 1 acre or 2 acre lot, and they're going to do short-term rentals, then this ordinance would say that on that parcel, says no more than 1 dwelling unit may be rented on a single lot or parcel. Now, I think Commissioner Nebaker was saying, under some circumstances, someone might come in and divide that into multiple parcels. And that's a process that someone, they can request that change, and they can go through that change, and if everything's in order, that might get approved.
But my question is,
It's a business decision.
And usually, if someone has a bunch of units on a property, like, for instance, at the beach, they're going to want to sell those. They probably have already
sorry,
divided them.
I can't-
And remember,
I
our
can't hear
zoning
you.
code also controls how many dwellings
On a
you can
par-
have
on a parcel.
on a parcel. And in most agricultural areas, you can't have more than 1 house plus a in-law or helper cabin.
okay, that's,
I have a little difficulty hearing you if you could talk a little bit closer into the mic.
Okay.
okay, I understand now, that my questions, does that make sense to you?
No, I couldn't hear.
It doesn't come up, but I don't think the sound's working.
Oh, that's why.
I'll try and talk really loud. I just said, remember that if somebody has, some zones, you can only have 1 dwelling on a parcel, by zoning. And also, if somebody has 3 or 4 houses on 1 parcel, they're not going to be able to sell those separately. They probably are going to want to divide them anyway, as a practical matter, like on the beach, because then you could sell each one separately. So I don't know if there's a lot of property in the county that would be impacted that isn't already by our zoning laws.
So, hopefully this is a simpler way to look at it, but the zoning that's already in place will regulate what can be built and how many buildings can be built. That has nothing to do with this ordinance. This ordinance only comes in play if someone chooses to use one of those buildings as a short-term
Right,
rental.
I understand that.
Okay. So,
But is it limiting if someone already has this happening? Then are they not allowed to have more than one? Are there situations where we have that configuration?
There could be an instance where you have a home and, for instance, a mother-in-law cottage or a farm worker cottage on the property where you wouldn't be able to rent out both of them, only one.
And are any of these already currently short-term rentals?
no.
We know that.
I was just told that by the person who tracks that for us.
All right.
So,
Okay. Thank you. I have other comments too, but I'll wait for other.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So, I know you're probably very tired of hearing me talk about the parking. I believe in some areas of the county lands, we allow in-home occupations, which are commercial, whether they are medical providers or accountants, or there's all sorts of in-home occupations. And those people can have their clients park on the street. But with short-term rentals, we're saying no parking can be allowed on the street. And I would like to ask if the commission would consider at least one or two on the street. I think that would be a compromise.
Could I respond? Because I have a home, what do I have, a home occupancy permit is what do I have? I have a small business, and in order to get a business license, I had to say people wouldn't come to my house, or if they did come to my house, I had adequate parking, or I had to get approval from my neighbors for a variance. I mean, I had to go through a process. It didn't just automatically happen when I did it. So it could be that it's changed. I don't know. I don't know if we want to have staff come up and address this on the record or not, but in my experience, as a business owner, I'm regulated.
So if you have an in-home occupation, you're not allowed to park on the street? Your client is never allowed to park on the street?
I have a long driveway. If they parked on the street, it would be a hardship. I mean, for me, in my situation.
Is that a requirement in our ordinances?
I don't know that off the top of my head. I'd have to research that.
And I'm going to bet that it will depend on the zone you're in too, as well.
It's going to depend on the
because,
zoning and the location.
You know, a number of zones have home occupations allowed, but there's different restrictions in different
But not all zones
zones.
allowed.
And there's different street standards. See, our roads where I am are not built to county standards. So if you want to allow parking on the street, you're going to impede the ability of emergency vehicles to get in and out. So it's a safety hazard for those of us who are concerned about access because our roads are tiny. So it's not the same as being built to county standards.
Well, I would like to propose that if we pass this as is, and we hear that there are people who are impacted adversely because they're not allowed to have one parking space on the street, that we review this and change it.
In that case, couldn't it follow the zoning?
Yeah, they would be
mean-
subject to whatever the current zoning regulations are.
Right, so perhaps that's a little bit more fair if we have it, we pass the ordinance and there's an issue, then whatever short-term rental is on that, it needs to go to zoning and to see if they are allowed to have that within their zone, so that it's fair amongst everyone. No matter what occupation you're doing, it should follow zoning,
Yeah.
right?
But the roads,
I
aren't the
think,
same.
but I think Commissioner Nebaker's point is well taken. I mean, this is the first time we'll have a short-term rental ordinance, and I think the first time you put anything in place, you know, we should take a review of this, you know, within 6 months, maybe a year. Let's find out how it's working and whether it's causing unintended consequences or whether it's working as we intended. I think that's a great point.
Yeah, and I've had that conversation with you too also, and I totally agree with that. We can revisit this in a year, and, you know, if we have citizens or folks come forward, we can change it.
Okay, so I would appreciate it being brought up. In any case, I'd just like to know what has been found out in 6 months or whenever that is.
And this is just a quick reminder to the commissioners, if you pass this ordinance, it doesn't take effect until July 1. So, you know, it gives people time to adjust to it and prepare for it. And so, you know, what I would suggest is maybe next year at this time, you know, in January, we'll be 6 months or so into this thing. You know, let's take a hard look at it and see if it's accomplishing what it was that we set out to accomplish.
Okay,
Because I also feel well, two things. One, when I think of unincorporated areas, I think of roads, not streets. Do we have streets in the county?
Not,
I mean, we do within the incorporated areas,
well,
but
there,
when you're out in the country, they always call them roads when I
you can
go.
be in the urban growth boundary. You can be in the urban growth boundaries and have
And
streets.
be unincorporated?
Right down here,
Well,
202.
there's a few circumstances of that. You know, we do have county road standards. Those are different, you know, than city street standards.
Right.
And then, you know, one of the other issues, frankly, that we deal with on a regular basis is, you know, our county is crisscrossed by what are designated as public roads, but they don't
Privately
belong to
maintained.
anybody.
Yeah, privately maintained public
So they're
roads.
not county roads, even though they're public, you know, they're not city roads, even though they're public, and frankly, some of those can be built to almost no standards.
They
And
kind
there's
of
a lot of them out in the county.
Does our county roads policies address parking on the side of the road for residents?
I'd have to go look at it, whether it's probably more in zoning. I don't think it would be.
It's
in the
just a
road
question that
policy.
popped into my head as we've having this conversation. It'd be,
Yeah.
because I know Commissioner Thompson, and I can tell her where I know where you're going with this, because this is a concern down in your area where people are impeding access, and it's
Little.
huge.
Yeah, little roads, privately maintained. It's just an ongoing source of strife
Right.
and a real consideration, real concern, so thank you.
So I'm pleased that we're going to revisit this, and so I hopefully we'll be able to move this forward and, you know, address your concerns that you brought up at the last meeting concerning the timing of inspections and
Right.
and things like this. And I think as this rolls out, we can see what, after a couple of years even, we can always change and say, well, you know, we need to start, you know, especially, if, let's say we double the amount, I would be all in favor of, you know, and then staff this would already been inspected once, and we can get a feel for whether or not, you know, we need to move inspections to a more frequency.
Well, I think there's going to be a difference. There's going to be a wide range of short-term rentals. There's going to be people that are renting out their house for once a year. And there's going to be people that are renting it out every weekend and during the summer, during the week. And so when you are dealing with that number of people coming and going from a structure, there's going to be things that go wrong. And that's when the safety issues come into play. So that's my concern.
Does the county regularly inspect, like, bed and breakfasts, or hotels and motels? How often do they get inspected for safety?
Hotels and motels have one set of standards, you know, bed and breakfasts have a different set of standards. Some inspections we're involved in, some are done by state agencies.
Interesting.
Well, and I've got constituents talking to me long and hard about Airbnb and Vacasa and the standards and the taxing fairness issues and public safety issues and public revenue issues and neighborhood livability issues. And So this is, I think, a good first step. It isn't, I don't think it's perfect. I think it's a great idea to bring it up, take a look at it, let's see what happens, let's gather data. I want to be sure that there's going to be some place I can go when those bottle rockets are exploding at midnight to record my concerns. Is there going to be something on the county website?
Call Sheriff Bergen.
You know what? I've done that. They're not real happy to hear from me. So I really want, no, I'm serious about this.
I
want-
understand.
Okay,
I'm
so
sorry.
we're going to have something
And
on-
we did talk about getting something in place on the website, talking about when the septic system and whatnot. I don't know if Director Mike Summers was talking about doing that. And how is that going? Is that something that we're working on? Is that going to be put into place? I know it's outside this,
But it's related.
but it's related, and we've brought it up every time we've talked about it. I have anyway, so I'd like to know how that's going and what the progress, what do we expect with that?
Yeah, I can't give you a progress report tonight. I mean, I know it's something that we're working on, but there's a lot of things we're working on. I don't know exactly where we are with that one.
I do think it's important, though. I mean, do the other board members feel that it would be important to have some place where we can go and have some transparency here on this issue?
Concerning-
We can do it now with restaurants. You know, we can see if they pass the health inspection or not. You know, it seems like a reasonable thing to do.
Well,
People are gonna be
and,
using their house
you know, I
as a
guess
commercial dwelling.
another question, I guess, along those lines. Well, this is really not the topic for the public hearing, so maybe I'll bring that up later in my comments later. But a question, there's a variety of ways we could look at that, and so there's other things we could do in addition to putting things on the website, so.
Yeah, I think we should, I think staff is already kind of,
Well, I'm just wondering, because we brought it up every time, just wondering what has been done, what is the thinking on this? I mean, how do I further this idea if we're always putting it down the road?
what's
We'll talk
exactly
about it
the
some
idea
other time.
that you're
That
specific?
we need, you know,
Inspections of septic systems? Is that what you're talking
isn't
about?
that part of this?
Well, I'm just, what's
Yeah,
your
because,
concern?
well, the thought is there a place like they have for restaurants where you can go and see if they've passed the health inspection? Is there going to be a place where we can see if these houses have passed inspections or not? Is there something, and I
You'd be
know.
able to operate if they
If,
didn't.
yeah, if they
I
haven't.
know, but
Yeah, they won't have a license.
neighbors want to go and check, they can go and check and see if it's up to
Right.
standards.
But if they
But
don't
also,
have-
if they have a license, they've passed inspections. so.
Right.
Is the license, is the record of their license going to be online where they can see if they have their license or not?
It should be, and it should be posted, I think, also in the business.
In the business itself, but I mean, if the neighbors are interested, I know they're supposed to be within 100 feet radius of the situation. I'm just talking about transparency, and if we're regulating them, where do we keep these records?
What people are saying to me is they want to be able to come and both look for information and to enter complaints if they have them. So I'm looking for a twofold
Exactly.
thing. And it just seems reasonable, because what we're talking about is keeping honest people honest. Some
But if-
people are always going to do the right thing. Some people you're going to have to argue with for a long time. Other people will do the right thing given the right set of accountability. So we're trying to help the right people do the right thing.
But if people have complaints, they already have a way.
No, it doesn't work like that. When I'm talking about the bottle rockets are going off, you know, in the middle of the night, there's no way to deal with that effectively.
Well, that's true for any crime or illegal activity that takes place. One has to call the proper authorities and talk and complain about it.
Commissioner, I've done this for years, and so have my neighbors. And what I'm telling you is that what we want is something where we can enter this data in timely. A website is, I think, a good way to do it. People don't want to have to approach a house full of belligerent, often drug-impaired people to look at their license that's posted. No, that doesn't fit the
There's no license
situation.
for bottle rockets, so that's a couple of different things.
I understand your concerns, and I think that these are issues that we can address, but tonight we're specifically focusing on this ordinance, and I think it's important that we get this on the ground and get the foundation. And then we can start dealing with these issues one at a time. And I agree that there should be, you know, I could talk some of the same problems I have on different things, but I think what we need to do is pass this ordinance tonight, and then we can address the individual concerns. And so, I'd like to confirm motion.
I'll make a motion that we pass this ordinance as written.
Second.
Okay, let me get my
Here.
bearings here. There it is. We have a motion and a second to approve ordinance 2018-01, conduct the second reading of the ordinance 2018-01 by short title only and authorize the chair to sign. Seeing no further deliberations, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, board. This was a great conversation, and I think it's an example of good government. Do the reading. Staff, could you read the...
So,
ordinance by
Mr.
short title
Chair,
only?
we actually skipped past the reading part
Yeah,
of the,
he's ready
of
to
the
read
title,
it.
so, so if we could just back up, just a minute, and the short title is an ordinance regulating short-term rentals, ordinance number 2018-01.
That's it? Okay. Thank you.
Do we have to approve it all over again, or is it?
We got it, because according to here, it says we do the motion, and if approved, we read it by title. So I think we,
You got to give me my sheet
Oh.
back. Thank you.
thank you, Commissioner. Okay, so we're moving on to our next item, which is the business agenda, and we're going to adopt fiscal year 2017-18 budget policies and strategic plan, page 31. May I have the staff report, please?
Good evening, Commissioners. I have before you the 2018-19 Budget Policies and Resource Management Strategy. It is currently presented as I last brought it to you during our discussion session. And so at this point in time, I can quickly run through, if you would like, the just the budget process, like we discussed before, the things that that we are budgeting for, those being election, health services, land use, law enforcement, property recording and mapping, road construction and maintenance, tax assessment and collection. Those are all things that we're legally required to do. What budget questions, what services do we want? How do we want to pay for these services? How much shall we pay for these services? And the budget document is a reflection of the community values, and the values, they tend to not change a whole lot over the years. Goals might change, but the values of the community tend to stand pretty consistent. You've seen this quote many times before. Staff shall prepare fiscally conservative budgets and will seek savings wherever a balance between cost efficiency and the quality of public service can be achieved. So within our budget policies, these help guide the staff, the commissioners, county management, department heads to manage the county financially in a fiscally responsible way. They communicate to the public the guiding principles that the county will follow for the coming year's fiscal services. And they help manage the stability and efficiency of the resources by following the long-term financial plan, which is something that we recently had reviewed, and those suggestions have been updated into the budget policy as presented. Departments are preparing a base budget, meaning that there are no increases in their budget as presented. The only increases are those of health insurance costs and negotiated salaries per union contracts. The departments must fully pursue revenue sources. Money saved during the year is not to be spent, and the county won't backfill any shortfalls in state or federal funding with county revenue. And this is all currently in your budget policies. The priority functional areas that have been identified are public safety and justice, which includes things like jail, criminal division, the DA, child support, medical examiner, emergency management. Priority public health is number 2. That includes mental health, community health, family planning, WIC. General government and direct services, which includes things like assessment and tax, board of commissioners, clerk and elections. Community development, land use, transportation, and housing, those are your roads, your building codes, your code enforcement, your planning, and then culture and recreation, which include the fairgrounds and parks. This is something that you've seen many times before. We are in that red box currently right now where we are proposing the budget policies, the budget calendar, and getting ready to move into February where staff will begin doing their projections and making their requested budget. This is an important one for you as budget committee members, as well as our potential lay budget committee members, which we still have 3 vacancies that we are receiving applications for until the end of the month. So we hope to have everything to the proposed, for the proposed budget document to be to the printers by the 16th. So that way we can distribute the budget by the 25th of April. And I'm hoping that for any commissioners that would like to attend, as well as the lay budget committee members, that we will have a what's called a Budget 101 presentation. I did it a few years ago. I'm hoping that we can resurrect that, and that way any people who are not familiar with the layout of the budget, we can go through that and kind of show them how the budget document reads.
Monica, are you aware that April 25th is the Seafood Crab Fest, Astoria Warrenton Crab Fest weekend? Is that on is the 25th? That's just a very busy weekend.
Is that a weekend day?
Is the 25th, what day is that? Is that a Thursday or Friday or?
I'll find out in a second.
Yeah, sorry, I don't have my.
Were you,
It's a Wednesday.
it's a Wednesday?
Wednesday, okay.
Yes, so.
I was going to say, I try not to schedule things on Fridays or Saturdays. Not that I wouldn't work on a Saturday, but try not to. But if that day doesn't work out, we can try a different day.
That's
but-
great, we're doing the 101 presentation. I think for the new members of the Budget Committee and new commissioners is really a great
Yeah,
opportunity.
Yeah, so, and then, so our budget schedule for the lay budget committee, which includes you guys, is scheduled for Tuesday, May 8th. That would begin at 9 a.m., and that's for the county-wide budget. The Wednesday, May 9th, would be for the 4 component units, and that would be at 5 p.m. prior to your regularly scheduled board meeting. And then, if necessary, a second day has been scheduled for May 10th. And again, it kind of depends on if it's a necessary day, and then we can determine if you want to start at 9 a.m. again on that day. June 13th would be when we have the public hearing, and then June 27th is when we would adopt the budget. And so at this time, if there's any questions or comments, as far as a staff recommendation, the staff recommends that we move to approve this resolution in order as presented or as modified by the board and authorize the chair to sign.
I have questions.
Yes.
So do I.
Do you want to
Sure,
go ahead?
who wants to go first?
Well, it's, I'm glad we're talking about this. I'll remind you, I'm interested in investment, not just saving and in controlling spending. So therefore, when I look at pages 46 and 47, and I see that housing and community development, economic development, all of that is priority 4. I disagree very strongly with that. I think that should move to be our priority 1, given the circumstances that we have. I mean, I understand that there is some stability in this, but everywhere I go, I hear that this is the number 1 issue facing county residents. And it's impacting neighborhood livability, it's impacting economic development, it's impacting quality of life for everybody. So that's one thing I would like to see number 4 become number 1, and then everything else be renumbered after that. Really more problematic for me is on page 44. So I'm curious, in item B, the room tax revenues or any legal costs associated with legal action taken by citizens of Arch Cape against the county on land use issues. Help me understand the thinking that led to the inclusion of that language, please.
There have been significant costs, legal costs incurred by the county as a result of the disbandment, if that's what you want to call it, of the Southwest Advisory Council. And as a way to try and offset some of those legal costs, staff is tasked with, and that's in the budget policies, trying to find available resources, discretionary resources. And these are discretionary resources that we were just looking as an alternative to help pay for some of those ongoing legal costs.
So I understand that that's a,
And that could be, there was a suggestion made, that language could be changed to, rather than saying Arch Cape, just unincorporated areas, citizens of unincorporated areas.
well, I'm reading our motto, which is neighbor to neighbor, serving Clatsop County with integrity, honesty, and respect. And I have to tell you that from my constituents and from me, this language does not indicate any of those. What it indicates is a certain point of view that if ordinary citizens or volunteers or even commissioners question county operations, they are strongly punished. There's a very punitive and hostile response to any kind of questioning, and this language in its entirety, I would move to remove from this, no matter what the construction is, because I think our obligation as elected representatives of the people is to be balanced and inclusive and collaborative. And I think the fact that we still have these issues means we've got a ways to go to make more progress with that. And rather than punish people by billing them for their legal costs, for differing with county operations, I think it's much better if we as commissioners and staff say, let's find effective ways to collaborate. So I would move, Mr. Chair, to delete the new language or any legal costs associated with legal action taken by citizens of Arch Cape against the county of a land use issue, on land use issues. I'm looking for a second.
I'd second that.
So we have a motion, a second, to remove the language on item
B?
14B.
When can we make a second motion?
I think Kathleen made a second.
No,
So
I mean, another one.
We need to
That is
discuss the
rather than
motion that's
that.
on the
First, we
table.
need to, we can deliberate on the motion on the table.
Okay,
So we have a motion, a second. Is there any discussion?
yes. I would go with what Ms. Steele is saying, to change it from Arch Cape to the unincorporated. I would support that, so that it is not just,
So the motion is the whole thing striked. Now, the whole thing strike, but you would want to try to amend that motion, or you would want to make another motion after, depending on how this one goes? Because if the motion
that's
passes, then
fine.
that language is gone.
That's true.
So we can either, if the motion dies, then you could make another motion that said that you changed the language. And then we can see where that goes.
Okay.
So we have a motion, a second, to strike the underlined sentence in item
Phrase.
13B. Is there any further deliberations?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
We had 2 letters from the people in that area, which they thought they brought up some very good points. Can you address their points that they brought up?
Oh.
They were, the
Oh, yeah.
letters were forwarded to all
The
of
one
us.
from the Orca group?
And there's 2 letters. One was from Tara Urban, the Arch Cape Falcon Cove Beach Community Club. And then the other one was from Cameron La Follette, Executive Director of Oregon Coast Alliance.
So as far as being vindictive or trying to,
I'm sorry, which letter are you talking about?
I don't have them with me, so I'm not sure. I just read them both emails this morning. So in regards to some of the language, it wasn't intended to be a vindictive movement. It was just, as I said, we have a limited amount of discretionary resources. And so when there are these costs that come in, we're looking at ways to pay for these things. And these are discretionary resources that we were looking at using to help offset the legal costs that the county is incurring from these suits. As far as the ordinance is something that these budget policies wouldn't take effect until July 1st. And the ordinance that was referenced in one of those letters regarding the room taxes, these policies would take effect July 1st. So if these are adopted the way that they are presented, then we would then go and bring before you the change to the ordinance. So that way, because we wouldn't bring the ordinance to you now because you might not have it happen in the budget policy. So you have to do one before the other. So we're presenting the budget policies with this language in it that don't take effect until July 1st. And if these pass, then before July 1st, we would be bringing the ordinance to you to amend that language.
But we would be bound, if we pass this policy, we would be bound to agree to the ordinance once you brought it before us. Yeah, so we're committing to passing to changing the ordinance by adopting these policies.
Has it been a surprise that we're getting legal action against us when they, from the beginning, said, don't disband us? We've been in process for 40 years. Negotiate with us. We don't want to be disbanded. So are you blindsided by the fact there's now legal action being taken? I mean, where are these laws, these legal fees that what are those concerning? Is that concerning because the people?
There have been LUBA appeals.
Yeah, you can never anticipate whether someone's going to, take legal action or not.
Looks like you're anticipating legal action.
In this case, folks down there did, not really legal per se, but they went to LUBA, the State Land Use Board of Appeals. And I think they went 3 times, and they failed all 3 times. And so who knows? They might try it again. So. And so we don't know whether they're going to try it again, whether they're ready to move on. I mean, we don't know.
Because one of the complaints is that that tax money is not being used to take care of the roads and other infrastructure down there. And I think that's a real concern. And I think that's where the tax dollars should
It is
go.
being used for that, it's just not enough.
Yeah, the idea was that it was going to be in a fund that would build, and then over time, it could be used for roads.
And they have been using it. Last year, they used approximately $6,000. And they, like Commissioner Nebaker was saying, is while $6,000 to you and I might seem like a lot, but when you're looking at a road project and trying to do something for a road, $6,000 doesn't go very far. So they have been building up those reserves so that way, and they have been looking at their roads master plan.
Yeah, they have
so that way
projects
when they're-
identified.
Yeah, so when they're down in that area, they can, extend the use of those dollars because they already have projects down in that area, and then they can incorporate those projects into the projects that are part of the county roads.
But I think I think it's wrong. I think it's wrong.
Okay, is there any further deliberations?
I have a couple things more to say. I think it has a chilling effect on dissent, and I think that is the opposite of what we need for good governance in Clatsop County. I think rather than stifle dissent, I think we need to bring people to the table early and often and work to include disparate points of view. Now, easier said than done, no doubt about it. But the phrase I've heard from my neighbors associated with this language is abuse of power. Abuse, let me just say it again because they're really clear. This is a very passionately, you know this. I mean, people wouldn't be this involved over this extended period. It's a very deeply held community value, passionately held. So they look at this and say, that's abuse of power.
As I know I have said before, that area has a history of wanting special consideration over everyone else on the county lands. And we have negotiated with them. When I first came on, we started negotiating. We started trying to work with them. We were open. We were transparent. We have always been so, and welcoming to have dialogue. They wanted it a certain way, and they drew the line in the sand, and that's how they wanted it, and then it went on from there. And I don't think that it's helpful to characterize it that we're not listening. We have been listening. They are choosing to take legal action.
You know, there's been a lot of contention and a lot of negative commentary directed toward me personally as the District 5 representative sitting on this board. It's come from the witness table, it's come from the dais. So you can understand that I might be more sympathetic to my neighbor's point of view that dissent is not welcome, differences of opinion are not welcome. They are met with legal force in a very punitive way.
Okay, well, I don't agree with that at all.
Well, I think it's important to actually try to add some perspective and clarity to some of the comments that have been made. Let's be clear about what this is, and let's be clear about what it's not. This is tax money that is paid to the county, and so it's money that the county has, and this is just suggesting that in addition to the uses that are already in the policy, the county would have another option to use this money. We're not going back to anybody and charging them for legal fees. It's not punitive. This is money that already comes into the county, and the policy is just suggesting that in addition to the uses that are already in here, an additional use would be added, which is you could choose to use that money to pay legal fees under this policy. But it's not billing any citizen. It's not a punitive act against any citizen. It's just setting a policy and giving you an additional option for how you spend tax dollars that you're already collecting.
But the tax revenue, what other parts of the county get room tax revenues? What other part of the county gets that? In the same proportion that Arch Cape does?
No, well, the way that the ordinance was written, that 30% of the 2.5% increase, 30% of that 2.5% increase was written in the ordinance to be used for public road and drainage improvements primarily in the Arch Cape area. So as far as the room tax revenues, that is how the ordinance is written for that 30%. The remaining 70% is used to, per the ORS, used to promote tourism within Clatsop County.
Okay, so my question was, what other parts of the county is producing room tax revenue?
Arch Cape produces approximately 75%, and then the other unincorporated areas within the county produce approximately 25%, unless that has changed very much, Alicia? It's about the same.
Why are we getting complaints that roads and whatnot are not being taken care of in Arch Cape? And because, I mean, if we spend the money on this legal cost, that's so much more money that can't get put in the accounts for roads.
Well, these are public roads, they're not county roads.
But there's nothing in this policy that says it has to be spent on legal costs. What it says
Well, let's take it out then.
It says or. It gives you the option to do that. It doesn't say you have to do it. And the other thing, I think, Commissioner Sullivan, to your question, this gets back a little bit to the discussion we were having earlier tonight, why there may be complaints about roads not being taken care of. We get complaints about roads not being taken care of all over the county. All over the county, not just in Arch Cape.
Oh, of course, I'm sure.
And the reason that those roads are not taken care of by the county is they're not county roads. We don't
No, I
have
understand
a
that.
responsibility to take care of them. And so when we get those complaints, so you got to kind of look at them and say, well, is it even our road? I mean, if it's not our road, if it's not our road and it's not a public road, we can't legally spend public dollars on that road. So there's just a lot of rules that sort of govern, how we can spend the money, what roads we can spend money on, and where we can't spend the money. So every complaint is almost unique as we look into it to say, okay, well, this one's actually a private road. So you can complain to us all you want, but we can't help you from a county standpoint. It could be one of these public roads that doesn't belong to anybody. And the same thing, I don't know what the number is.
It
I'm
could
guessing
be.
we have
It could
hundreds
be.
of
It could
miles
be
of
a
those in the
county
county. And we don't have the resources to take care of all those either. So it's just important when you hear complaints about roads, you got to sort of understand what the nature of that complaint is and what the nature of the road is.
So I understand that, but my point is, this is a hammer. And you can say, I didn't use the hammer on you, but if somebody knows you have the hammer and you can use it if you choose to, that has a chilling effect on discussions and dissent. So that's why, and maybe it's time to have the question.
Well,
called.
discussion and dissent isn't the issue here. This is legal, once beyond discussion and dissent.
Right.
Then the legal part comes. This isn't a question about discussion and dissent. This is a question about lawsuits and litigation. So we have a motion on the table. Are we ready to vote? Is there any further deliberations?
Now, exactly what are we voting on?
We are voting to strike the entire underlined, the motion is to strike the language underline on page 44 on 13B.
Okay.
So all those in favor?
Aye.
I'm sorry, to strike, it, aye, yes, yes.
So we have 2 ayes.
2 ayes.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay. So the motion fails.
I heard 2 yea, nay.
We have 3? Aye. Lisa?
Nay.
Aye. The motion fails 3-2.
I would make a motion to follow Ms. Steele's suggestion of making it, changing from that area, Arch Cape, to the unincorporated,
I second that.
so it's general.
We have a motion and a second to strike the words Arch Cape and replace them with county, unincorporated
area.
Clatsop County. So we have a motion and a second to strike the language of Arch Cape and replace it with Clatsop County. Is there any further deliberations? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
Okay, hold on. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Motion carries 3-2. Okay. So we got that one out of the way. Thank you, everybody.
So then, that was for the language change, and then staff recommends that the resolution and order as presented or modified by the board, and authorize the chair to sign.
So then, I'm looking for a motion to approve this resolution order with the amended language as presented and modified by the board and authorize the chair to sign.
Unless you want to discuss further, I'm sorry.
I have some more, I still have some questions.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Okay, so,
And sorry, and then there's also Commissioner Thompson had made the suggestion of moving what's currently goal number 4 to be goal number 1, and move everything down from there, was the other thing that has been presented.
Thank you.
did you want to finish that up, or?
Well,
you wanna keep
I
talking?
can't imagine, we can't, I'm not going to support taking public safety off the top of the list. It's been like that forever.
Okay, Mr.
You know what I would
Chair.
suggest? I understand you're concerned. And lining these up in a numerical way sometimes isn't maybe the best way, because it has a tendency to, in our minds, kind of like prioritize things in an all-or-nothing kind of way. And maybe there's a way, I don't know, to have that not look like the list that it does. I don't know, I'm just thinking on my feet here.
if you can figure that out, I'd be
Like
interested,
a
yeah.
lot of times when you see priorities, they're the size of the bulbs,
What I'm looking for, here's the deal. It's those hungry, homeless, hurting people that keep motivating me and listening.
Well, that falls under public safety. Sorry,
No.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
So here's the deal. If housing isn't our priority and economic development that helps people have the wages to afford housing, because that's what our neighbors in Columbia County found in their housing study. That's what our neighbors in Tillamook County found in their housing study. It isn't just the lack of housing or affordable housing for various segments of the population. It's the fact that folks don't have the income. I mean, I listen to people talk about having 2 or 3 jobs so they can share an apartment with 5 unrelated people. Man, it breaks my heart. So for me, that's the thing that's going to do the most to help our economy. I hear white-collar workers who can't come here, medical workers, teachers, law enforcement, they can't find a place to live here. And so in my mind, it's degrading our neighborhood livability. It's degrading our public safety. I mean, you know, folks defecating in an alley in Astoria because there's nothing available for them to use what we think civilized human beings in this country ought to have a right to be able to use. I mean, this is a huge, big deal. And so to have it, I understand your point, but how do we shift? Because we have to guide the staff as they make budgeting decisions. Is that accurate? Well, yeah. And so we're begging the question if we say, because that's our job, is to put it in order. And I'm saying for me, it's number one.
Well, these issues that you bring up are serious issues, but they're not being ignored as far as I can see. I believe the county is working on them, and I'm on the Public Safety Coordinating Council, and this is what we talk about and what we're working on, and as I reported in my last commissioner's report last month. So I don't think it's being ignored. I think it is, and we have the county manager who has gotten together with all the other cities, getting them on board so that we can have this study and everybody bought in, and we are working on it. I don't think it's fair to think that we're ignoring it. We're working on it, and I think we can walk and chew gum. I think we can do a lot of things simultaneously.
I'm from Michigan. I appreciate that. So is Kathleen.
One of my thoughts on the matter is that I know that we've been talking about getting a new jail. And that's going to be a huge commitment financially. And when we talk about having a new jail, we also talk about maybe once we get this, we can get a treatment center. At the same time, when we've taken tours of the jail, Sheriff Bergen will say that over 95% of the people that are in jail are in there in some drug-related charge, some drug-related situation. So maybe we need to have, while we discuss public safety, maybe it is just the wording, I don't know, but I mean, I think we need to address the addiction issue that we have in this county. And that means putting it, are we going to get a detox center? Are we going to get some treatment here? You know, I mean, we can talk about a jail, but we can't talk about getting treatment?
Right now, we're talking about the budget committee.
No, we are talking about the budget, and when we're talking about policy and we're talking about priorities, that's what leads us to a jail or a treatment center. And if we're not talking about, if it's not getting talked about in print, then how is it going to happen?
Well, that would fall under public health, the detox and the treatment. That falls under the community health, the mental health, those programs is where detox would fall. And so as far as, you know, that's the hard part, is they're all interrelated, but you can only, you know, you can't have 2 number ones, but it doesn't mean that, and I've said this before, it doesn't mean that the staff who's working in the planning or the building codes department doesn't feel as though their priorities are the number 1 priorities and aren't working towards meeting those on a daily basis. This is just kind of, you know, as far as how funding streams happen, and so everything is still being funded per that base budget amount, but then if we have any additional funds, where is the greatest need lying? Does that mean that public safety gets any additional funding? No, that's part of the budget process where we look at, okay, well, what are our needs? Are we meeting the planning department's needs to be able to, you know, fulfill permits and everything? And so we have some additional funding. Public safety is a number 1 priority. Are their needs being met? Yes. Planning, while they're number 4, are their needs being met? Maybe not, so maybe we need to put some more funding there. So it doesn't necessarily mean that just because you're number one, you're going to get all the money and everything else is going to fall to the wayside. It just means that these are our priorities. We want to make sure that this is being met and needs are being met here, but that doesn't mean that you need more. It means that we can look at other programs and see where their needs are being met or
Well, how
or
much
not
money
being
has been dedicated or will be dedicated towards working on housing and working on addiction issues and mental health issues compared to public safety?
Well, I don't.
That's how
Well,
hard
let-
Kid in the
Yeah.
room gets the most candy.
Yeah, let me jump in here just a little bit, because over the past several months at these meetings, we have had discussion about detox beds, and we've indicated to the board that we have in fact attracted and identified enough money to potentially fund 2 detox beds. This would just be the county, that's not what other people may do, but we have to have an appropriate facility for that. So we're looking for a home for those things. And it's like a lot of things. There's different levels of detox, and once you start getting into that, you begin to realize that, some of these things are much more difficult to get into than others. For instance, medical detox is very different. You have to have medical personnel. It's expensive. But we have talked about that issue,
I
and
know
we've
we have.
indicated that we have resources. And we've talked about housing, seems like almost every meeting over the last year. And, we are, the county is taking the lead, if you will, and putting quite a bit of money, $50,000, into this housing study. And that study is going to give us strategies. I said this when we went into the study. That's just a down payment on solving the housing problem. But I think it's better for us to do the study, have information, and have targeted strategies, than to just start going out and spending money on housing, without actually understanding, whether it's going to make a difference in the market the way we want to. And so, we are working on these things, and you as commissioners, have supported these things, and, we're moving forward on them.
But you know what? I'm not saying that we're not working on these things. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that the people in the county don't care about that. That's not what I'm saying. This is a discussion of priorities and goals. And goals, if everything is fair and even Steven, I would say the thing that I'm hearing most about right now is housing. Let's move it up to the top. And then we'll trust that public safety will still get their dollars. But we're saying, unless you're saying that that's not the way it works, I think then what we're saying is that detox and treatment will never get their due.
It's not true.
And economic development, the economic development exists. John Muir has said it, conservation and economic development go hand in hand. Economic development is how we provide support for the development of good jobs here in Clatsop County. And that's the other part that's at priority 4, and that's the part that breaks my heart. Because what we've seen in the housing studies, again, in Columbia County and Tillamook County, is the same thing. There's a wage gap. It takes economic development to bridge that wage gap so that people can have jobs, so they can afford to buy houses, not Section 8. Yes, there are people who need that, but for the majority of people, they want to be able to provide for themselves. They want to have jobs that give them hope and give them the capacity to take care of their families and their communities. So that's why I want number 4 to be number 1. So I'm going to keep saying it, and you will or you won't, but that's what I'm going to keep
I don't think we have the votes on that, but I do have a couple other questions.
Yeah.
On page 6D, the additional timber monies shall be transferred to the Special Projects Fund only in an amount necessary to meet the anticipated capital requirements for the 2018-2019. Why the wording change on that?
Because that was a suggestion from the long-term financial plan. Previously, anything in excess of the 15-year low was transferred to the Special Projects Fund for any capital projects as well as towards the general fund stabilization account. And per the long-term financial plan, the suggestion was that the general fund stabilization account should remain in the general fund. It would just be an unappropriated fund balance amount. And so this is saying that anything beyond the 15-year low would be transferred to the special projects to meet the needs of the budgeted capital project requests. And then the rest of that amount, timber money beyond the 15-year low, would go into the general fund stabilization account, which remains in the general fund.
Transparency. And basically, it's more transparent that
Okay.
way.
Okay.
Is that fair enough?
And then under the next page, on page 7, should the resources of the general fund be insufficient to meet the budget, blah, 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 the 2 million, could you explain that a little bit more?
Again, that's a recommendation from the long-term financial plan. And so if the resources that we've received for our budgeted needs cause the general fund stabilization account to fall below the $2 million threshold, then the expenditures will be reduced and evaluated based on the resource management strategy. So if we aren't able to keep our reserves where they need to be, then we'll look at making reductions to the budget to maintain those reserve levels.
Rather than reducing the reserves?
Rather than what?
Rather than reducing if we can't make the $2 million threshold, we will find ways to make the $2 million threshold.
Yeah, we would reduce some of our budgeted amount.
In order to maintain that?
Yeah.
Okay, that's one of my questions.
Yeah.
And then on page 43, you
But I'm sorry, I don't have your 43.
okay,
I
it
don't
says
have-
employee salary adjustments.
Okay, sorry.
It's, what has been stricken is annual employee step adjustments will not exceed 5%.
Page
Why-
8.
Why was that taken out?
Because we have a new, when we did the comp and classification study, we don't necessarily have steps. Like management, there aren't steps. So as a management position, you may only get like a 1% increase. And in some instances on the represented or unrepresented schedule, that doesn't really follow. It used to be a 5% increment, and it no longer follows that. It can be less than 5%. So we just took out the step adjustments will not exceed 5% because it doesn't really fall
But
within a specific.
But doesn't that imply that it can also exceed 5%? Wasn't that wording before to kind of limit it to not more than 5%?
I suppose. But previously, it was just, there was 5% increments on, because they were, the Appendix A is 5% increments for each step. And so they don't have steps in some of our new schedules.
And it pertains to union contracts, which are using a different formula than the step system.
Well,
Yeah, when we went to the new class and comp system, we went from a single payroll schedule that had 5% steps in it. We now have 3 different schedules, and so this just doesn't work on all 3 of those schedules.
So you're actually taking out step adjustments more so than the dollar amount?
On some of the schedules,
yeah, the one union remains on that, well, actually, technically 3 unions still remain on the Appendix A.
And then finally, on page 45, performance-based budgeting.
Yes.
Is this the 4% of the annual salary?
No. We have performance measures that the staff have, and so this is just looking at, as a department, what your performance measures are and are you meeting them. This is something that is constantly being evaluated, and we were given suggestions from the long-term financial plan to make improvements on that, because right now they're more output-based rather than outcome-based. And so we do have performance measures. They're listed in the budget document, depending on the department. Like for the budget and finance department, it's to have a customer satisfaction rate greater than 90%, to have a budget without any unqualified opinions, those sorts of things. Each department has their own performance measure.
So this 4% of the annual,
The 4% is
is that
not.
is that in this document at all?
No, the 4% is part of salaries, and that's in the budget.
It's in a separate, okay,
Yeah.
thank you. And then on page 47, number 3, I'm sorry, for the purposes of the fiscal year budget, the county will not consider seeking voter approval for new or increased discretionary revenue, new property tax.
Oh,
how
my
does that fit in
apologies.
with the
That
jail
should,
bond?
that should read 1819.
But what about if we have to ask for a jail bond? Where's that going to, does that preclude a jail bond? Question.
No, because that wouldn't be a discretionary revenue. That would be a dedicated revenue specific to.
Thank you.
If there's no further questions or comments for staff, I'd look for a motion.
Let me go back.
Page 32.
Thank you.
Chair Lee, I move that we approve this resolution in order as presented or as modified by the board and authorize the chair to sign.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the resolution order as presented and/or as modified by the board and authorize the chair to sign. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 3-2. Thank you for the staff report. Thank you for taking your time tonight. Commissioner reports, please. Commissioner Nebaker.
Okay. Let me go to my notes here. I met with the Arts Council of Clatsop County. Welcoming new members. There's 3 new members on the council. They've made a goal to have sites of public art mapped in the county so that people can see where they are, learn about them, the history of them, what they are. Education in the arts for our schools is a focus of the council and part of the council's mission. And that's what they're looking to focus on going forward. Prior, it was the study, which showed us the economic impact. I learned about a program that one of the new council members is heading in the South County. It's called Aspire. It is mentorship for students at the high school level to, it's ongoing, it's like weekly, they meet with the students, helping them to find ways to further their education post-high school. It also encourages them to graduate so that they can do that. It's not just a funneling into a 4-year program, it's also, it's any education beyond the high school education. And so far, I guess it's quite successful. It's been there for a while. I hadn't heard about it. Exciting.
Is that censorship? Is that what we call that?
I didn't know about this program. Maybe everybody else knows about it. Anyway, and I was thinking that maybe it would be good to have it in the North County too. So I brought that up at the next meeting, Human Services, and so we're going to look into, there may be other programs that are overlapping, but as far as I know, there's no mentorship like this.
We have it.
You have Aspire? Really?
100%.
Oh, see, I was told that it wasn't here.
Well, I think it's called Upward Bound.
That's different.
Oh, it is.
Yes, it's very
Okay.
different.
Okay.
This is like a weekly meeting with each of these students.
I don't know if we're supposed to converse right now, but my sister does Aspire in West Salem. And this past weekend, Isabella, who's a freshman, was conversing back and forth with her about it, and they were talking about the programs, and they thought it was the same. Okay, interesting.
It's different.
Good to know.
Okay, yeah, maybe you can talk to the
I
school
will
and
help.
see. They could talk with people in the South County at Seaside High School and find out more about it. I also have some information I
Yeah,
could forward.
I would love it. please.
Okay.
Yep.
We have, Amy Baker reported, we have 8 people in crisis respite. She said it's working really well. helping people
Yeah.
there to heal.
Finally, it's taken a while.
But
Yeah.
these things do take a while. And I remember when I first came on the commission, I heard from Mayor Larson, who was on the Public Safety Coordinating Council. He said, "We've been talking about a respite center for 10 years. It's never going to happen." Well, it's happening, and it's doing a lot of good. So we can continue on and do more good things. There is a mental health pilot program with CMH for children, prevention for 0 to 3, which is really good. This will work on referrals basis, and the earlier that children can be seen and assisted, it will lower the cost to counties and the state going forward, because early intervention is really important. So these would be children with disabilities or mental health challenges. Perhaps, there could be all kinds of reasons, but perhaps their parents have substance abuse or something like that. But anyway, they're partnering with Columbia Memorial Hospital to do this for referrals. We have 180 children with developmental disabilities enrolled in, not that program, something else. We had 121 more, and we think that families are talking to each other about services that are provided. So more families are getting involved, which is a very good thing for these children to get help. However, the funding remains the same. And we have a new chair, Bob Mushin? Mushin?
Good, he's recovered then.
Yeah, he's doing well. Something that he brought up when he was a county commissioner, we were funding, what do you call that?
The contributions to outside agencies.
Contributions to outside agencies. So we were funding it at a $30,000 level. It went down to
7,500?
7,500. Now we have increased it to 15, and he's asking that we reinstate it to 30. He brought it up. And as you know, I definitely support that.
Commissioner Everett, may I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So what have we decided on how that money will be distributed?
They decide, and it's
Who's they?
the
Human Service Advisory Council.
Human Services Advisory. And they have the expertise. They carefully look, it's grants received, and they look at the data for where the money has proven that it will actually make a difference. And this is how they run this.
And then does it come in front of the board or what?
No, it doesn't have to come before us. The level of funding does, but no, they do a really good job. And a lot of it is towards prevention. And if the more prevention we do, the less cost to the county. There is a grant that they are working on to work with pharmacists, or maybe it's already happened. I can't remember now. I didn't put that in my notes. With pharmacists and providers to assist in outreach regarding opioid addiction. Because right now, pharmacists are not required to report if someone is getting multiple prescriptions at different pharmacies. They're not required, it's voluntary.
Oh, I thought that was required.
And so they are reaching out to the pharmacists and the doctors that they voluntarily report this so that there can be a cross-reference. And also the drug naloxone is part of this. The only benefit to these businesses, whether it's doctors or pharmacists, is that it'll help prevent overdoses. I mean, there's no monetary benefit to them. So we'll see how it goes, but hopefully they're altruistic enough that they'll do this. Problem is, there is a gap. And the gap is, how do they manage pain? That's a huge problem, because that's what they use opioids for. Yeah, we could talk about that for a long time. And then also, they have a new hire in behavioral health coordinator. And now I can't remember what they're going to do, but I know it's an important position. Do you know?
Well, we have an offer out to someone. I don't know if I've gotten the acceptance letter back yet, but
Okay.
hopefully this week. We will get that back, and then we're looking at a start date maybe in about 3 weeks.
And I forget what it is they're going to be doing, other than they'll be setting agendas and,
No, actually, they'll be doing a variety of things, one of which will be providing staff support to the Public Safety Coordinating Council, the Human Services Advisory Council, and then our monthly case management meetings. But frankly, in my opinion, more importantly, what they'll be doing is providing a little bit more active involvement and oversight with CBH, who's a a county contractor.
good.
And then also working to coordinate the various elements of the mental health care system in the county to help them work better together, help people get more quickly to the assistance that they need instead of maybe getting bounced around. So, we hope that it's really a systems approach, to try to improve what we already have here, more coordination, more sharing of information, getting people assistance, quicker and get them to the right place.
Is that someone from outside of Golby, or are they part of Golby, or what?
Well, it would be a county employee, well, I don't want to say a whole lot more. She hasn't accepted the job yet, as far as I know, about her background. So, but it's someone who's already in the community.
Okay.
Okay, that's it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Clement?
A couple of things that address some things that you were talking about. The arts in schools is really alive and well, and especially this year. I think it grows every year. The art department is large, and they have a wonderful instructor at the high school, wonderful instructor in the middle school. They work together to put on multiple shows in town, and during Art Walk, they did a show at the old Lums building. It was amazing and very well attended, and they also marketed their artwork, so I thought that was amazing. And it's very, some of the programs are a little bit competitive. For instance, woodshop was a class that was offered even when I was in school here, and it was the class that everyone took to get the easy A. I mean, it was woodshop, you're going to make a little. Well, now it's competitive to get into, so it's not, you can't just sign up for woodshop.
You get into woodshop?
Yeah, you can't just.
Huh, how about that?
You have, and pottery as well. There were, I think Isabella told me that there were like 50 freshmen that wanted to get in pottery, and they accepted like 5. So it's like and I think that's important, because it used to be, well, because they just don't have, that large of space, and all these people want to do it. And there's art shows, and there's outlets, and there's some people want to go through maybe Aspire Upward Bound, and they're looking at careers, and that just did not used to be the case 20 years ago. It's a very different program. So I think it's just amazing that it's grown so much. It really has. So that's important to sort of bring that to a middle and high school aged children. Another thing about substance abuse and the problem we're having, they are also teaching that at certainly the high school level. It's certainly talked about in the middle school level, but the high school's health class for freshmen does an incredible job at giving them statistics. And everything that you spoke about tonight, I'm happy to say, is being taught to our children as well. So very important. Another thing I wanted to touch on was the food inspections and Mike McNichol's unbelievable efforts to get those done. I he's hired some people, and we've been real short-staffed in that department for a long time. And I think in the email, we're almost up to date. 90,
Yeah, he met
almost 100%, 93 to 100% of all the, so, and it's very extensive, you know, when they come into the restaurant, they don't just, you know, stay for 10 minutes and look around. I mean, they're checking temperatures of everything. They're checking employees, what they're wearing, what they're drinking out of, you know, chemicals, everything. So, and I am always welcome to have them, most of them. There have been some that have been a little bit more challenging and maybe just out of school and by the book and not really understanding of really what's going on. But the last couple of people have been incredible, and they're a huge resource for all of us to ask questions to and to learn from. And I mean, it's scary when you suddenly see the inspector come into your place of business, but only because you just don't know. But the last few people have been so amazing, and they've just been very, very helpful and open to questions. And if there is something wrong there, they want to make it right. They're not looking to, you know, fault you and point fingers. They really want to make it right. And I think it's, I just see it getting better and better. There was some rough times there where it wasn't like that. So, you know, that after the inspection, and I was thinking I would talk about this, then I saw the report. So, I mean, I just think that that was very, very difficult to do. And so I'm real happy to see that.
So do you see that this is an improvement that over what it used to be?
Oh, my goodness. Personally, tremendously. And just to have 4 of them is a big deal. I mean, we had Hal, one man, for a very long time. And, I mean, and then he got like a sidekick for a while. But, I mean, it's, I just think, and the fact that this woman knew exactly what she was looking for, she didn't have to waste anyone's time. She wasn't going to have a hard time deciphering chicken from duck, which we've had before. We've been cited for having chicken, and we don't have chicken in the restaurant. So, I mean, you know, there's a learning curve there. And I thought she was amazing and very knowledgeable. And now that we have the inspections almost up to 100% level, that's first time ever that the restaurant inspection numbers were over 90%. So maybe the more education they give, the more that the restaurants, you know, they have trouble with different languages when English is not the primary language and having to figure that out. But I just think that the more education they're able to give and the way that you present something makes that person want to do it, then the next time they come back, they realize why it's important and they follow suit.
So that's a big improvement that the county has.
I think it's,
You know, that's pretty much in all of the different kinds of enforcement that we do. What we try to do philosophically is to take a compliance approach. You know, we're trying to help everyone get in compliance as opposed to an enforcement approach where, you know, we're just here to write you a citation. And I think people respond much better to that approach.
well, I think that also has a lot to do with Mike because he is that way. And if he teaches that and leads by example, they will follow suit. And I think that's definitely what I see. And I just am really pleased to know that, you know, not only for myself as a business owner, but myself as a consumer and just for public safety again.
So do they inspect ice machines?
Yes,
Good, okay.
yep.
I've always wondered about that.
Commissioner Thompson.
Well, I want to remind everyone that the Job and Career Fair is Wednesday, March 21st, at Patriot Hall. And I'll remind you that that's for all the high school, depends on sophomore, junior, senior, what each individual school wants, but it's their bridge to get either a job for the summer or to get on track for a career. That's in the morning. The 5 high schools all around Clatsop County go. In the afternoon, it's the adults. So there's a website to look at the Clatsop County Job and Career Fair.
What's the date on that?
Wednesday, February 21st. Morning for the youth, afternoon for the adult job seekers. And the applications for both the job vendors who have jobs to fill and for the students have been translated into Spanish. So we're doing outreach to that community, which I think is really exciting. You had a BOPTA appointment. We had a BOPTA appointment tonight. I went to Board of Property Tax Appeal training. It's about understanding how valuation is applied to properties all around the state. The Department of Revenue does it. It's a great tutorial. I mean, if you like numbers, man, going to the Board of Property Tax Appeals is just the best because it's nerd heaven. And if you have any curiosity in learning more about that, I've been doing it for the past several years. I encourage other commissioners to learn because I think it's fun and the training is great. Cedar yesterday had a strategic planning retreat, which was wonderful. The intended outcome, the goal, was a paper to guide decision-making going forward. So there were economic development people all around the county. I was happy to see the county manager there. I was there. It's an important community builder. It's an important linkage between the people and the place. So since I'm the person who talks to the economic people about the environment and the economics to the environment people, I ask that we include that we live in a beautiful place when we're talking about creating jobs. So we'll see if that happens. I went to the community action team and we talked about several things. That Columbia County housing study is going to be out any day now. It's great that they've done it. It's great that our neighbors in Tillamook have done it. It's great that we're on our way to getting it done. We also talked about the Alderbrook House because I knew you had an interest in that. What Casey said was, the staffer for the community action team, we can't build our way out of the housing crisis. We have to do rehabilitation. So I thought that was interesting to consider that point of view and how and they've got grants to work on manufactured housing, stick-built, all of it, in order to make it possible. They talked about having a design to put a roof and a new platform and steps on the back of manufactured housing so that the doors didn't rot out and rot the floors inside because the wind would come through and grandma would fall in a hole in the floor. I mean, it's that for $750. So that kind of stuff is very creative use of applying community resources. The Association of Oregon Counties is active. It looks like Commissioner Schrader is going to be so busy being the first vice chair of AOC that I'm going to move in to be co-chair with Commissioner Schuster from Benton County. AOC and the League of Oregon Cities is working together with Oregon Housing and Community Services to shake loose a couple of $100,000 to put toward projects that are ready to go and more. Now, Benton County has a project, Tillamook County has a project, Clackamas County has a project. But what the goal is to use that $200,000 to move the needle all over Oregon. So I go to speak for Clatsop County and to work with people so that we can get the manufacturing, we can get the supply chain, we can deal with the policy issues, we can deal with the models for these projects' development. So as soon as that, as you said, Commissioner, it takes time. So we're looking to get more information from other colleagues around the state who are successful in that regard. A couple of other things. One is that Representative Kenny Geyer still wants to get more money to pay for emergency housing by increasing the filing fee, document filing fee, and the county clerks are not happy with that. So that's still politically contentious. Another thing is there's a pilot project that Rob Bovet is working on with the southern Oregon counties where the big leakage problem is with marijuana. Because one of the things that the federal government is concerned about is the leakage of marijuana grown in Oregon that isn't used here but is shipped out to other states because we have prime garden territory in the very places where there isn't enough money to pay for law enforcement. So they're looking at having a pilot program enacted through legislation that will allow them to have additional money for enforcement at the county level in southern Oregon. Because otherwise the federal government might, I want to say, disrupt the economic development that's been happening in the marijuana industry, which is significant all over Oregon. And I think that's enough for now.
Commissioner Sullivan.
Thank you. Tomorrow I will attend by telephone the meeting, the Northwest Senior Disabilities Conference Services meeting. The February 23rd FTLAC meeting has been canceled, but I still plan to attend the Board of Forestry meeting March 7th. Upcoming, there is the Columbia River Estuary Conference, what I went to 2 years ago. They have it here every 2 years. They have scientists that have a variety of disciplines that all have to do with oceans and estuary and water issues. And I really recommend it, even though for me, I'm not a scientist, so there's a lot that I'm treading water with, but it was...
When is that again?
That is going to be April 10th to the 12th at the Liberty Theater. It's called, it's Promoting Resiliency Under Shifting Environmental Conditions. And it's put on by the Columbia River Estuary Conference. Then we all got, I believe, an email about the Public Health Marijuana Summit in May in Portland. Do we know if anybody from the county or the commission is going to be attending that? Because I know that we're working on a marijuana ordinance, right?
Well, tax for next November.
Well, in order, I was going to give a quick update on that on my
Okay,
report.
and I, when I was looking through my emails and I saw this, this marijuana summit, I also saw a free one that we missed, but I'm beginning to wonder that perhaps with marijuana becoming such a huge industry that there might be a lot of these summits and conferences popping up. So I guess we'll have to keep an eye on that. In regards to the senior disability, tomorrow from 2 to 4, there's navigating APD eligibility, which is a mental health provider's perspective, dealing. So that's tomorrow, and then on February 7th, there's Commissioner Neverker. I thought you would be interested in this. The ACEs, trauma informed care and role of the health literacy. And we've got the email about the water projects, the grants and loans that are coming up, and the feasibility study grants that are having deadlines, and hopefully that we have some projects that can perhaps apply for those. Maybe the county manager can let us know about that. And the WINGS program, I'm going to put a shout out often and early for the WINGS program up at the Clatsop Community College. It's going to be Saturday, February 10th. It's free and it changes lives. So I encourage people to let other people know about that. And finally tonight, the North Coast chapter of the Oregon Equestrian Trails, along with and very much helped by Senator Betsy Johnson, we now have a Northrop Creek horse camp reservation system. So people that go traveling with their horses can plan ahead of time to have a place to camp. This is going to be a 2-year pilot program. of an online reservation, and it's through the state parks reservation system. So we'll see how that's going. I know that folks around here have been interested in that for quite a long time. So it's a success.
on the Riverwalk history.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Riding along.
Do they have riders on them?
Yeah.
Oh, go.
Two women
Well, I wonder if it's written that they can't. I don't.
alone, and I was thinking, I wonder if the trail runs along the Riverwalk.
So, and I also wanted to congratulate Mike, Mike McNichols on what was in the paper about the needle program exchange and the increasing use of that. That's good news, and the Tobacco 21 also. So.
Okay, thank you. Just a few things. I was invited to speak to the Upward Bound induction ceremony, and that was really neat. There's about 27 students, and it's a great program. I worked with the Upward Bound group back in 2005. They were doing kind of a map and doing some GPS work. It was really a great program. There was a press release that came out on the 25th. Clatsop County.
It is now, yeah, it comes out tomorrow. So.
Oh, I see that, yes. Tomorrow, there's going to be a press release. The Clatsop County is the first in the state and the second in the country to win the EPA recognition for renewable power commitment with the Blue Sky Challenge. We have amazing participation, increased by 36%, and participation by business was 72% countywide. So that's a neat, I'm a member of that at my shop, and I think it's a great program. There's going to be a talk about starting an interscholastic bike team, so each high schools can have their own bike team and compete in regional events. It's something that's coming out of California, and I'm going to be hosting a meeting at my shop with some folks that are trying to launch that here in Western Oregon and Washington. And I want to remind all the commissioners that we need to get a couple folks on the budget committee. So if you know anybody that would be interested in that, that would be great. And that's all I have right now. Yeah?
I forgot one thing.
Sure.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that a very important member of our community, Jerry Boisvert, received the OYSA Lifetime Achievement Award. It was in the paper, but I just wanted it to be maybe on the website via this. For people that know him well, it's a very, he's very worthy of this award, and he's not well right now, so it's just very timely and amazing that he was able to receive that. So I wanted to make sure that that was on the record.
You bet. Thank you for the
May
report.
I say one more
Oh,
thing?
please.
I wanted to address the question about the Lynn County lawsuit. As far as I know, it is still in process, and they expect it to go on for a number of years. I think that the state in December has already spent at least $1 million defending against that lawsuit. So, but it's ongoing.
County Manager Moore.
Can I just ask one thing? When you address us, will you talk about the tsunami thing that happened
Sure.
the other night? Thank you.
Yeah, let me talk about that first, since you just asked. I think as probably everybody's aware, night before last, about 3 o'clock in the morning, there was a 7.9 magnitude earthquake actually off the Aleutian Islands in Hawaii. NOAA issued, it wasn't a warning, it was a tsunami watch. And so NOAA issued that. That goes to a variety of, local state agencies. And as we were getting that information, they already started to downgrade it. They have sensors out of buoys out at sea, and they're going, this is not, there was a tsunami, but it wasn't very big. And so, that's one of those decisions, that our emergency management director had to make was, do I send this out at 3 in the morning, even though it's only a watch, and it's starting to already look like it's being downgraded, and of course, get people alarmed and maybe wake them up and have them heading for the hills. And so, the decision in this case was not to issue the warning. And I think there were several other jurisdictions here in the area that kind of made the same decision. Some did, some didn't. And, you know, frankly, it's one of those things that whichever way you go, you know, somebody was going to be unhappy. But that was basically what happened the other night. Now, there are some communication things that I think we can fix in terms of some of the agencies and, you know, how that information got out. Because, you know, we had some local agencies here going, well, are you guys going to issue a watch or not? You know, that type of thing. And we can improve some of that communication, but that's sort of not public. You know, that's like to the police chiefs and, you know, sheriff and people like that, so that they can prepare for what might be coming.
Are you going to include us in that? I mean, that's my concern, because several people called me and wanted to know what I knew. And because we're not part of, it's extremely awkward.
Yeah, as you might imagine, there's actually a very detailed protocol for how all that happens. And there's going to be a meeting coming up here in February to talk about that. Do we need to update the protocol based on what we learned, you know, through this last issue? And so there'll be discussion about that coming up. I just really have kind of four other things quickly. One is the jail. I know it was mentioned earlier. The Sheriff's Office, county management, and our architects and jail experts, you know, have continued to work on this, you know, since the last time it was in front of you. And we need to get this back in front of you in February. So I'm going to suggest that maybe we have a work session at one of the February meetings. Basically, what we're going to come back to you with is sort of an option that we can all sort of support. When I say we, you know, it's the law enforcement community, you know, the DA, the judges, you know, county management. And it'll be a scaled back version of I think you saw the sort of the idealized version at the last meeting, which I think was like $28 million and I don't know, 200 and some beds. And this is going to be somewhat of a scaled back version of that. But you know, once we get this in front of you, I think it represents sort of the best thinking of all of us that have, you know, spent a lot of time and all the experts about, you know, this is what makes the most sense for Clatsop County. Now, I want to be very clear. You get to decide whether to do it or not. You know, we're just saying if you're going to build a new jail, this is probably what would make the most sense. You can certainly make changes to it. I don't want to suggest you can't. But so obviously it's your decision ultimately what you do with this. But because of the amount of money we're talking about, a jail bond would almost certainly be necessary. So, you know, if you do move forward with this, you'd be looking at putting it on the November ballot. The deadline to do that is actually in the summer. You know, that's why February sounds like a long way out, but it's not that long. You know, if you want to have public hearings or have more discussions, you know, whatever it is you want to do. So, if we can talk about it tonight, which one of the February meetings might work best, or if you know, I can do a quick poll after the meeting, or
No, let's do it now.
kind of reach out to everybody. And I think it's 14th and the 28th, or those.
Yeah, 14th and the 28th. I'm good with either days. We don't have any other work sessions planned there upcoming, and as far as we know right now.
I'm going to suggest the 28th, just because I don't even have the most recent stuff we asked from the architect yet. Probably we'll get that in the next day or two. So,
5 o'clock?
so let's plan on 5 o'clock on February 28th.
Is that good with everybody? Yeah, okay, that sounds good. By consensus, we'll
And
go
so
with that.
then a couple of other things quickly. You know, I know you just got through the process with the short-term rental ordinance. You know, this is something that you had requested several months ago. So we will be coming back to you in the near future, looking at also an ordinance regulating recreational cannabis sales. And there, you know, there's limits to what we can do as a county. We can regulate sort of the time, the place, the manner. So, you know, stay tuned for that one, and it'll be a similar process, you know, that we went through with this one.
Yeah, time, place, manner, and 3%.
Well, and then secondly,
Separate.
you also have indicated that you would like to go ahead with putting the sales tax on recreational cannabis on the ballot. So it has to be on the ballot. You can't approve that. It has to be on a general election ballot. That's why we couldn't do it in 17. So 18 is our next general election ballot, and so, but again, I'm sure we'll have some discussion about that, before it gets on the ballot, but just be aware of that. And then the last thing, you had also mentioned at a previous meeting that you would like to do something to thank and recognize the Clatsop County firefighters who, travel out of state. And so we will have that set up for February 14th, which is your first February meeting. And, we connected with them. That looks like a good date that a lot of those folks, I don't know that everybody will get here, but plan for that on February 14th. So, and with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions anybody has.
I'd like to know, to follow up with what the protocol is for a watch or warning for an emergency. So who in the county is alerted and what do they do? Do they come down to the county offices? Is it on the phone? How does that happen?
It's a little more complicated than that, and so it's probably good just to get the whole protocol out, so we can all kind of see what that looks like. But there's several different types of notices that are set up in the system. There's different levels of notice where different people get notified about different things. So it's probably be good for us just to come back and kind of give you a brief update on that just at an upcoming meeting. And again, the protocol is about 4 years old. We looked at it the morning after, the tsunami warning and said, it's 4 years old and probably needs to be updated.
Including what our role is.
Well, this is a communication protocol, so who gets communicated?
Okay,
So.
but I'm asking one more time to have more information about what is our role during those catastrophic situations. And so I'm going to keep asking for that.
Okay.
I have one more thing. Sure. We talked about the voters pamphlet last time, and I sent an email forwarded to you all about possible exemptions for special districts not having, to the fee for the voters pamphlet. So if we could get that in some kind of discussion form or something in upcoming agendas so we can talk about it and just kind of get that tucked away one way or the other. Would that be possible?
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, based on the direction you gave us at the last meeting, we have started the process of reaching out to the districts. I've only heard from one so far, but we've reached out to them to ask them, would this be a hardship? How would it impact your budget? That type of thing. So.
And also on it's this election coming up in May, they will get voters pamphlet because it's even election year, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.
Thank you.
I asked about this Alderbrook house. What Casey said was they
Isn't that amazing?
that's amazing. He said it was.
Hop along.
Take care. 60 grand, but that's because half gave
I don't find
I
that.
don't know, but I just wanted you to have the data.
Thanks for that. Means a lot.
Them now.
I wish I could buy it, I tell you that.
You know,
I may just pop one day.
if I
I
knew.
don't
a
have the
good-
money,
if
but.